it is my great ambition that we could manage $1 billion in the hedge fund. And should that come to pass, we'd close the fund. But at that level, it could invoke our best ideas. I wouldn't have to hire outside help. What's the point at that point? And the great ambition, manage your own money. I mean, a few weeks ago, the interview with Stan Druckenmiller, I mean, the great Stan. And Stan's worth $2 billion, 2 yards, and he's unhappy. Stan, crikey, how could you be long 2 yards and be unhappy? I promise you, if I was a $2 billion billionaire, I'd be the happiest person in the world, and I'd be managing my money. My notion with China is simply that the world may be, and I'd hate to sound arrogant, I have not seen the future. I'm just engaged in the balance of probabilities, okay? But the world may have made an error of judgment. It may be associating GDP growth with wealth creation. And I don't make that association. I think China is almost unsurpassed in its ability to create GDP growth. But that may be at the expense of wealth creation. The world is so desperate to speculate. Why the desperation? I think a moment in time has passed. A moment which embraced risk-taking. A moment where every student wants to be a hedge fund manager. And it's a moment now where, if we look at society at large, the term speculation has become pejorative. People have a dislike and a discomfort because of the experiences of the last 2 years. So I do speculate, but as I said to you, our activity is focused on asymmetric opportunities, and largely we invest through option premium. So with that $100,000 or euros or pounds that you might bring to our table, we would only typically invest, or have at risk, if you will, say 20% of that money. There's a saying that I made up, which is that the pond with the most fish, if you're going fishing, is the most contentious pond. So I always ask my investors to consider their own portfolios. There should always be a contentious edge. You're not guaranteed to make money if something is contentious. It's just I think there's a probability which is more in your favor. So without a doubt, what is contentious today? Contentious posturing would be trying to anticipate a rally or a sustained rally in the dollar. Contentious posturing would be that the recent Bank of Japan intervention in trying to hold down the value of the yen. I think it's contentious to say that that would fail. I think it's contentious to say that the yen could strengthen to ridiculous levels, 70s, 60s, 50s. And it's contentious to say that with interest rates at 400-year lows, that they're not going up anytime soon. And it's contentious to say that with the 10-year US Treasury trading at 2.5%, actually, it might be a great asset to own for the next 2 years. I think all of the reform measures that have so far passed with regard to banks are toothless. I think that Basel III was a joke, 12 years. It's being pulled along, and the decision-making is being informed by the weakest banks rather than the strongest. I think the notion that a bank in the United Kingdom, why are they allowed to pay dividends? Never mind bonuses to the employees. I think both of them should not be there. And I think you mandate that you require 20% tier one. Who's made up? Who decided that it should be 4.5 tier one? It should be 20% tier one. Then society at large could rest. It's toothless again in that they've not separated investment banking from a retail deposit base. Toothless. They're terrified. So they're terrified of bankers because bankers are so large. The role of speculation, certainly as I perceive it, is the pursuit of knowledge. And I think it's become antagonistic to many today because the truth may be unpalatable. It's unpalatable to reflect on just how misaligned the Greek economy is and its culture, in terms of having any chance of raising sufficient tax revenues to meet the debts that they have. It's unpalatable to talk about that. It's very necessary, I believe, to talk about that. But when we come to ban forms of speculation, which seem to be motivated by a desire to avoid the truth, then I'd say, bear in mind, okay, you can do away with Hugh Hendry. But if I'm gone, if the hedge fund industry is gone, then it might be Bloomberg, it might be the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, it might be the London Times. You're not allowed to disseminate information which some higher political authority judges to be undemocratic. We are free society, free to do things as we choose. And there are some rules, and I don't see anything that requires additional absolute bans on behaviour. Again, if social mood is hardening, changing, deteriorating, then and we see that not just in hedge funds. What's potentially wrong with our society is that making money has become such an odious contention. And I'd say to those who find it odious, go and be poor. Yeah? Go and live in a poor society. Yeah? See how much fun that is.